I remember my very first visit to Pacific School of Religion. It was 1979, and I looked across the street to see University Christian Church. What a magnificent building, and I could not wait to see the members and meet the minister and see the ministry that was going on here. Over the years, I was in and out of this building when I would visit for Earl lectures, when I would be here for other events. And I was always in awe of the people who made up this congregation and the ministers who led this congregation. I never really imagined that I would be working with this congregation and walking side by side with these very faithful folks as they considered closing and transitioning this ministry to something new and different. Over the last year, as I have preached here and worshipped here and been in meetings with the council and the congregation, I have still been in awe of the faithfulness, of their sensitivity to one another, even through some very difficult decisions. I believe that not many congregations ever imagined that there might be a day that they would be closing their doors. I doubt that this congregation ever did. And yet over the last year, as the reality of that possibility became more and more clear, I could begin to sense the deep love, the devotion, and the grief that it would mean if this congregation was to end its existing ministry. I know even now that as the date of the closing worship approaches and is nearer and near, that there is almost still a disbelief, and yet the belief is sinking in bit by bit. I know there will be not only grief as we get to that day, but for many people there will be ongoing grief. And it will be a process for many members who have been here 50, 60, 70 years. This is the place where they have found deep fellowship and deep spirituality, where they have been challenged in their Christian lives for deeper mission, and where they have grown to love one another, and where they have grown to a commitment to the Berkeley community, to be a church that represents justice, that represents an outreaching arm and an open table. I would remind this congregation that as that closing worship arrives, that it will be good to keep saying, we are a resurrection people. I know the early disciples didn't know about that resurrection and weren't sure what it might mean. And it may be that way for the members of University Christian Church. But I do believe that as the days go on, they will deeply understand what resurrection can mean for this congregation. I grew up in a congregation that about 8 or 9 years ago closed its doors and its visible ministry. But as I watched that congregation struggle and grapple with what that would mean, when they began to realize the ministry that they were birthing, the ways in which they would continue to be remembered, and the ways in which their influence would go on and on and on, I began to see in them their understanding of the resurrection. So it would be my prayer for this congregation that will be a mantra for them. We are a resurrection people. Hallelujah is our name. I really would like to say another word beyond the members of this local congregation, because this local congregation at University Berkeley has also been a major influence in the life of this denomination. There have been many, many people who, as they went through seminary, as they did their internships, many people as they went to school in this area, who have been touched by the ministry of this congregation. And they are serving in ministry all over the U.S. and probably all over the world. In this region, certainly, this congregation has been one of those historic and vital places where we could focus our attention and be proud and feel dignity for the ministry that was provided in this place and by this group of folks over decades. To all of us, this is not an easy experience to say goodbye to this congregation. But it is important for us all to be reminded of the wonderful new life that this congregation is going to provide, birthing a new congregation in the Berkeley area and supporting many other disciple ministries, both existing ones and certainly some new ones that will be enabled because of the gift of this congregation. It is a great opportunity for us when we gather on February 25th for the ending worship service here to speak to the members of this congregation and to those that they represent over many years and let them know of our appreciation and our gratitude for what they are doing to provide a legacy for this congregation. I hope to see many of you here on that day as we join in great celebration and in appreciation and worship together a God of resurrection.